When I think about all of the capabilities that can be developed on the supply side, if you like to call it, on the producer, the provider side, all of those things that we can do to improve that, in a sense, they're fine. They're addressing one side of the equation, which is how to support the needs of my business. And that's a valid element of the definition of value. It's not just about the needs of the consumer, it's also about the needs of my business to survive, it's also the needs of my employees for continued fulfilling work. But it's still missing an element. And I think my hypothesis is that the final objective of Lean actually is to do all of those good things for the business, but ultimately actually what it does is frees up new capabilities to do things for our consumers that consumers really want. And I think it's very difficult actually to articulate those unless you start by working back from the problems, the questions that consumers have. I think push marketing, sales and marketing has been the most difficult area to engage in a Lean discussion about. And this is because of the power of the existing ideology of push marketing that goes with batch production. And yet, on the other hand, I've seen circumstances where we can begin to open up people's minds to the possibilities of doing things that are today impossible, but we could do them tomorrow if we wanted to do them tomorrow. That does open up great opportunities, and I think that's my hypothesis, that's what Lean strategy is about. It's about, yes, deciding all of the priorities for the business, for the survival of the business, and all of the internal priorities to make the employees in that business effective. But it's also ultimately about doing things for your consumers, your customers, that other people who have not got those Lean capabilities can only do at additional cost. And that ultimately is about transforming the business model of your industry. And that's, I think, the ultimate benefit of Lean. It's still a way off, but perhaps this kind of thinking can begin to open our minds to thinking what those possibilities might be. Let me just spend a few moments linking this back to what we've heard so far. We can ask the question, and I think people rightly do ask this question, is Toyota really customer-focused? Let's go right back. Is Toyota really a customer-focused business? And if you ask most consumers in the West, outside Japan, the experience of buying a Toyota, frankly, is no better than buying any other car. Toyota dealers in the United States actually rank the bottom of all franchises in terms of customer service and satisfaction. Not the product. The product's extraordinarily reliable, which is why people buy it despite the dealership. In Europe, Toyota dealers rank quite well in the pecking order of dealers, but there's still nothing, it's not exceptional. So people rightly have said, well, what can we really learn from Toyota? It's on the consumer side, on the selling side, on the understanding the customer needs side. And it's a puzzle, actually. On the other hand, in Japan, if you look at the way the consumer is treated, the way dealers are organized, and the way car service is organized, and so on and so forth, there are a great deal of things that we can learn. And we've been trying to do that because of our frustration, frankly, with the lack of any demonstration in the sales and service side in Europe or America by Toyota. We've gone back and tried to complete the puzzle ourselves. We've gone back and used Toyota's knowledge and principles and process design principles to go back and say, well, how could a really great customer service business work? And what would be the impact? And it's not difficult to figure out. And it's very interesting that the people who we are carrying out experiments with, the early adopters, are many Toyota dealers. They too are frustrated. So this is an example of how we would go about actually understanding the degree to which there is a joint win-win opportunity by rethinking the customer's process and the provider's process, i.e. our provider's process, where we touch the customer at the same time. This is taking the same value stream mapping methodology. In this case, on the left-hand side, a typical, and we've done lots of analysis, very typical customer's experience of getting a car serviced. Along the top, the customer's experience, the time taken in proportion to the length of the boxes, and all the steps that the dealer has to do to actually go through this car service. And applying Toyota's principles of having a dialogue with the customer to really understand the question, to really pre-diagnose the work that has to be done so I can plan it, I can pre-order the parts. Toyota's part system is still, I'm quite convinced, the best supply chain in the world, and it's the supply chain we use to teach Tesco. Toyota's part system enables this to happen, enables us to plan the work and segment the different types of work and streamline the flow through the workshop, so this experience translates into this experience. Translates from a 30, 40, 50, 60% chance of getting your car serviced right first time on time to a 98% right first time on time experience. So actually, it is possible to take all of these clean principles into the management of the customer interface and do it very successfully. And I believe eventually Toyota will wake up to the fact that its dealers are pulling for this knowledge because they see the benefit of it. So it'll happen. Dave wrote, with John Kiefer, wrote the workbook Creating Lean Dealers, which was a workbook for dealers to show them how to do this. That revolution's gradually beginning to happen. So my answer is yes. Toyota actually is really customer focused if we know how to look at the experiments or look at their experience, particularly in Japan, and are able to extrapolate it out of that cultural environment and understand the power of taking those ideas to rethink the customer interface, which has not been fundamentally rethought in the car industry for any time. Now, I think Toyota is actually really customer focused in another dimension too. You've heard John Shook talk about the fact that they are able to get every single one of their employees every single day to focus on the right things and to think about the right things for the customer and for the business, and really focus all their efforts on quality, cost, and delivery. And solving all the problems, the Muri problems, Muda problems that prevent that happening. And of course, we all know that Toyota's products have been at the top of the quality ratings ever since the year dot, and continue to be there. So there's a great deal of loyalty, despite the fact that consumer experience is no different, is no better. But there's another dimension, which I think is a strategic dimension, and that's a decision to do something that is currently not possible to do. And I think a great example of that is Eiji Toyota back in 1990, making a declaration that the future was not the internal combustion engine. That Toyota had to begin a path of exploring alternatives to the internal combustion engine. Made a big song and dance of it, published a whole section in in Time magazine, lots of adverts. The rest of the industry thought this was just PR and ignored it. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe it's 3 years ago now, being in Bosch with the very senior managers in Bosch saying, hybrids, we've tried that, that's not the future. And now Bosch has the largest R&D exercise devoted to hybrid cars out there. Because Toyota were not just looking for one alternative, betting on the winning alternative, the internal combustion engine, they recognized the future's uncertain. So to solve this problem, they came up with 5 countermeasures, or maybe there were more, but there are 5 paths, 5 separate green technologies that they've been following. And so far, the hybrid is the one that's the most advanced and in the marketplace, and now they're 2 generations ahead of everybody else in hybrids. And everybody else is struggling to follow as they're trying to cope now with the recession as well. Electric cars, diesel hybrids, maybe fuel cell, maybe hydrogen, all of those things are on the horizon and are coming quicker than people think. And it's going to cost the rest of the industry a fortune. Because Toyota was able, for a much faster iterative process, to make the impossible possible. And if you read the story of the hybrid, it's really a fantastic story about gradually learning how to make it affordable. So that's a strategic decision that was taken some time ago that other competitors decided against going down because, frankly, they did not want to make their existing assets irrelevant. So this is interesting. And the question I had, very interesting, from a Chinese delegation of senior Chinese executives from state-owned companies. I was talking about lean in Cambridge a couple of years ago. They said, the one thing we want to know is how lean can help us solve the green problem we have in China. We cannot stop the people wanting more cars, but we have to find another way of doing that without ruining the environment. So my bet is that the Chinese will also pioneer the electric revolution. So this is very interesting. This is an industry, old industry, that through real strategic decisions, using a lean capability, are able to transform the business model. And I think this happens elsewhere. And let me one other example, which I know because I was at least early on part of creating this, and went back and discovered some papers that I wrote way back exploring this. What we did with Graham is start out by thinking, how does Toyota logic apply to streamlining the supply chain in the grocery industry, taking Toyota's parts distribution system as a model. And we did the walks, which I described. We designed flow-through distribution centers and stores. We developed the concepts for, and they implemented, after a period of time, continuous reordering systems from stores to distribution centers back to suppliers. They took on the concept from Toyota of picking up products from their suppliers rather than waiting for suppliers to deliver full trucks to them. Signaling, picking up just what they need. We reduced by a factor of 10 the time it took and the cost by not quite such a large factor in Tesco's supply chain of their high-volume product and largely own-brand product. Gave them a huge advantage, supply chain advantage, much fresher product, more convenient at less cost. What also was part of that strategy, what was just one piece of the strategy, the process piece. The second piece of that strategy, which happened, of course, at the same time, as I described, the power of the walk and the initial value stream analysis gave the board, Terry Leahy, right down the understanding that anything that removed delays, the red traffic lights, the queues in their supply chain would actually be better for customers. And so the concept of aligning strategy on improving flow has remained ever since. Very clear concept, absolutely fundamental to Tesco's thinking. They developed very common dashboards which were not only about financial metrics, but a select few operational metrics, customer service metrics, and employee satisfaction metrics, and they've now got a fifth part of that wheel, which is engagement in the community. Metrics you see in every operation, Tesco operation, distribution center and stores. They developed a fabulous pilot development process for taking a new concept, piloting it, working out the operational detail, and then being able to roll it out across the business. Against a lot of store opposition, they developed home shopping based upon picking orders in slack times in big stores rather than by building dedicated distribution centers. And store managers thought this would take away store sales. And yet, as they were able to roll it out really quickly, within months they were able to see that store sales went up by 20 to 25% as a result. They were very happy about it. So Tesco also have now, in the second and third generation of folk at Tesco, have actually distilled this into an operating system. John Browett was the head of the team that did that, so that they could replicate pieces of this model as they internationalized around the globe. And they've done a tremendous amount of engagement of store training. So on the people side, an awful lot of the key enablers to make that work. The real innovation came on the customer service side. Again, Terry is one of those few executives, like Jeff Bezos at Amazon, who will decide what's good for the customer and then work out backwards how the business can deliver that, against initial opposition. Loyalty cards and home shopping. Loyalty cards gave Tesco an understanding of how you could create those customer clusters that you're talking about, those common communities of clusters, 16 different lifestyle clusters of common purchasing lifestyles, preferences, and so on. Home shopping told them which of the third of the products you buy in a supermarket were actually substitute purchases, what would you actually want? That was a big shock to them and dramatically focused on improving fulfillment. So now they knew what different types of customers wanted. They began to see that customers not only wanted quality and price and choice, they also wanted convenience. And so as they rolled out the lean supply chain, which was based on small pack quantities, not on big dollies, big pallet quantities, we realized that supply chain could supply small stores at almost no additional cost to the big stores. So Tesco have 5 different formats: home shopping, convenience stores, high street stores, standard supermarkets, and hypermarkets. 5 different technology solutions at Toyota. It's interesting. The world is not one best way, it's multiple ways. Same customer shops in different times in different ways. But that's not all. Having pioneered the convenience format in the UK, they've now built a new business model around the convenience formats. Fresh and Easy in the United States, a chain of convenience stores around a distribution center hub, which actually contains many of their suppliers. Their supplier operations are actually inside the distribution center. So fresh product comes in, is processed, is in the convenience stores the next day. So they're able to not only scale this very quickly because they don't have the big store of the 35,000 items that nobody wanted that you didn't want. They're also able to offer whole food quality products, green, organic and everything, at Walmart prices. So this is a challenge to the existing big store business model, one format business model, that is forcing Walmart to match it. They've hired some Tesco guys, and they're matching it with their own convenience format. Convenience stores in Japan are the fastest growing segment of the market anywhere. You can do all kinds of things in convenience stores in Japan. So that's a very interesting. They're already able to do a model-changing business model that is actually challenging some of the biggest companies in the industry and frightening them, because Tesco could scale this up very quickly. Now, a lot of Tesco's competitors, of course, have learned a lot of these things and are in some cases doing them as well as Tesco, so Tesco's not perfect. But the next interesting opportunity, taking this logic further and thinking from the customer, is actually to integrate convenience and web shopping. We saw the web as an alternative to physical movement of products and selection of products. Actually, they're complementary. And if you combine the concept of a local point of contact, a portal, if you like, a physical portal as well as a web portal, and the concept of local water spiders, which is Toyota's water spider delivery system for neighborhood distribution, then you can have the concept of ordering at home or in the store anything from the 80,000 products in the biggest store without them having to be stored close to you, and have them picked for you to pick up later at the store or distributed to your home or to the school or to the shop, to your office or wherever. So suddenly this is going to open up a new business model that integrates the convenience of web shopping for the tail with the physical availability of fresh product in the core high-volume products. Plus, it opens up the possibility of turning customers into partners, trusted partners with whom you will share your plans. So all of that takes this thinking on another leap. Think of it as Tesco plus Google plus Amazon plus Starbucks, i.e. the local convenient coffee shop, or 7-Eleven Japan, which really does all of these things already. 7-Eleven Japan, 1974, opened and was based upon a group that was part of a club that learnt from Taiichi Ohno's group that after Taiichi Ohno left Toyota, he formed a group of companies to begin to teach lean. 7-Eleven was one of them in Japan. 10 deliveries a day, 3 by product category, 3 times they reconfigure the store shelves and so on. It's really a very, very powerful model. So the implications for retailers are huge. Multi-channel rather than one channel, web as well as physical. For suppliers, making it in one factory for the whole of a region doesn't make sense anymore. We're going to be making it much closer. Tesco's already doing that even in this country, making products close to their distribution centers to deliver straight into stores. So we'll see distributed manufacturing, just as we've seen a trend to centralized manufacturing. And for logistics, who actually owns the neighborhood distribution? A lot of it will be shared in open conurbations in the future. So you can see, this is not something that is a one-time decision. It's a set of capabilities and a thought process that actually opens up new possibilities as well. And new challenges. Well, if we want to be able to do that, we can't do it today because it costs too much, et cetera, but we can learn how to redesign the process to do it tomorrow. So that's what I think in every sector we're going to see people following that thought process. That thinking and that experience of working with Tesco inspired Jim and I to write our Lean Solutions book a few years ago, in which we proposed a set of principles for lean consumption. Sorry, we used the term lean consumption, Alan, to contrast it against lean provision, if you like, for the provider side. And we already got 5 principles for lean production. We developed 5 principles for consumption, for understanding the consumption process. And we proposed a methodology, some of which you saw, for seeing the consumption and provision streams and the win-win opportunities for aligning them, and discovering that most of the waste experienced by consumers actually is a reflection of the waste and inefficiencies of your broken processes. So there's a real big win-win there for redesigning those processes. And as a win-win means saving money for both sides and helping consumers solve their problems more effectively. So I believe that we are now going to see other sectors, and I'm glad they're beginning to talk to you, Alex, beginning to follow this path. When I look at the complexity of my household, I was counting up again the other night, and I got to 43, the financial products I have. Car insurance, bank accounts, et cetera, utility accounts, and so on. Of course, I don't manage any of those. I don't even study the choices for most of them. It's all inertia. But I would like somebody to think about my problem, my risk profile, which is pretty common with, I'm sure, a big cluster of other people, and custom my solution of what is my risk, what is my cash, what is my investment. Take my core financial needs and do that for me. Don't sell me products. I don't want products. I've got a need. I can define my need. We can have a dialogue about it. And likewise, in travel and mobility, great. I must probably sign up to 10 because nobody asked me where I really wanted to go. All they know is where the compromise I chose. And that compromise is different whether I'm on holiday to when I'm working. I want a completely different experience. And likewise, the airline business, in the book, we describe the growth which we believe will eventually happen of point-to-point business as well as point-to-point leisure. And so on and so forth. In healthcare, I think we are just scratching the surface, but across the corner are a whole bunch of different service delivery models for healthcare, which are not the big mass production district hospital. That's a legacy of the mass production era. Yeah, we've got to straighten that out. But ultimately, when those assets have run their natural course, we'll be designing fundamentally different business models around the customer's experience and the customer's processes. And that's for the future, and I think that's very exciting. And that's what I mean by lean strategy. Discovering the potential new capabilities opened up by lean, thinking what lean could do that we can't do today, that we could do tomorrow, and helping consumers solve their problems. So leave you with that. You can think about that when you get home and download the slides, so I won't go through that. Let me just finally wrap up by saying this is, I think, the set of questions for the lean movement generally. I think we've covered a tremendous amount of ground, and we've opened, I hope, your minds to a number of new topics. But really, this is a process in which we're all going to conduct a lot of experiments. We need to conduct a lot of experiments to manage our way from the era of modern management to the era of lean management. We're on the cusp, I think, of a dramatic change in the thought process, the mental models of the design of total economic systems, as Alan described. Who's willing to undertake those experiments? And how can we find a mechanism for sharing our learnings from those experiments? What can we learn from the pioneers already, both about transformation processes, not just about process design? What works and what does not? It's clear there's not but one best way. It's clear there are a lot of ways that don't work, that people are still pursuing relentlessly. And can we distill some common principles and methods from these examples? That's our task as the Lean movement. And then build a really solid scientific knowledge base for this Lean management era. And what are the opportunities then for exploring new Lean business models? We need the Lean entrepreneurs like Alex to pioneer the way. Whether they use the Lean label or not, I couldn't care less. That's not the issue. The issue is doing the right things for customers and businesses together. So that's what I wanted to leave you with today. This is an experiment. I would very much appreciate your feedback on, was this the right experiment? It's of its time. Is this something we should do again in a different form? What are the issues and questions that you have coming out of this and out of the next few months? I'd really like to hear your emails, and I will email you to ask you. Because this was a gamble. It paid off. Obviously, I listened correctly to the questions that you had that led you to respond when I proposed a potential a forum for discussion these questions. I'm not committed to this. On the other hand, I do feel the time is right, and our interest is alive, and I think there is a lot of experience that we can systematically collect, digest, distill, and share. And Jim and I are committed to using some of the resources that we've grown over the last few years to conduct a global experiment, a set of experiments and a global research project to really make Lean thinking and Lean management a reality over the next decade. So we'd like to engage with you in that process. We hope as well that you've learned something, got some new frameworks, got some new challenges, got some new ways of thinking about the direction for your Lean transformation that will make it a lot more effective, a lot quicker, and a lot more profitable. So if we've met those objectives, if this is the beginning of a next phase of the dialogue of the Lean movement, and if you are able to profit out of it, then I think we've done a good job. And I just want to leave you with this cartoon as you went home. I do think this is an infection. I think it's a benign infection, and I think there's no antidote. So best of luck. Thank you very much, and have a safe journey home.